So, talk about living things and also cells. So, the first thing you need to know is if you say this thing is living, now this is the intro to biology. So, biology is basically the study of living things. Okay, we have got bio, which is living, and then log, which is study. So biology is the study of living organisms and it has got different components. You have got botan. Botan is a component of biology that studies plants. You have got zoology, which is the component of biology that is going to study animals. You have got also ecology. Ecology is the component of biology that is going to study the relationships or interactions of organisms with one another. Okay, you have got different parts of biology. Entomology, which is the study of insects and all those other parts. So, for you to be able to say that this is a living organism, what are some things that you should be able to see? So, there is a mnemonic that we use for you to tell that an organism is a living organism. Mr. So, you can use this Mr. Graphic. Okay. So, actually, we used to use Mr. Grain. You can even use that one. So, what do these mean? So, the C here is going to represent cells, but I'll tell you which one you can leave out. And then the I here is irritability. Irritability. The other term for irritability is also known as sensitivity. And then you have got the F, which is basically feeding. The other term that we use for feeding is nutrition. And then you have got the E here, which is representing excretion. And then the R here is representing respiration. And then you have got the G, which is representing growth. And then you have got the R here, that is representing reproduction. And then M, and M represents movement. Okay, so let me remove this. So remove this one here. Okay, you can just say Mr. Grief. I hope you can tell. So the C here, the C there is not a characteristic. So all living organisms should be able to move, reproduce, grow, respire, excrete, feed, and be sensitive. Now you need to know the meaning of these terms. The first one is movement. What really is movement? If you are talking about movement, you are talking about being able to transition, to change position. That is movement, right? And a living organism should be able to change position. Now, the way animals and plants move is different. Animals can move in response to some factors. Let's say for example this was your plant which went straight like this. If the sun is coming from this direction, the sun is shining this direction, what you'll be able to see is that this plant is going to turn. It goes like this. So that is its movement. Okay, that's its movement. It will not move from the point where it is to another point. It will simply change direction. That is how a plant moves. Different from an animal. An animal actually move the entire body. And the movement of an animal where the entire body moves is known as locomotion. So the other thing that we are saying is that a living organism should be, let me talk about respire. Respiration is just a release of energy from the food that we eat. Okay. And there are basically two types of respiration that we need to know. There is respiration. We can make energy from the food that we eat. We can make energy from the food that we eat in the presence of oxygen or without oxygen. So that gives us two terms. We have got what we call aerobic respiration. Aerobic means that there is oxygen there. And you also have what we call anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic. And the anaerobic means there is no oxygen present. Okay, so these are the two types. Now, what have we said? What is aerobic respiration? So aerobic respiration is the process at which you are going to release heat. If you eat your food, not heat, if you heat your food and then you want to get energy from that food that you've eaten in the presence of oxygen, so you use oxygen, that is going to be aerobic respiration. While anaerobic respiration is where energy is released from the food that we eat without oxygen. Take note of that. So what is important is actually what happens is that, let me use aerobic respiration. When you eat your food contains glucose. So that glucose, which is C6H12O6, we can also write this as glucose. This will be able to react with oxygen. And the product you are going to have is carbon dioxide, water, and also energy. So please, you need to know this equation, okay? Please, you need to know glucose plus oxygen is equal to carbon dioxide, water, and energy. You can write the word energy there. So this is the equation for respiration. You can see we started with the glucose and oxygen, and we are producing energy. And now, what is growth? We define growth as a permanent increase. Now, this increase is in the size and also in the mass of an organism. It's actually the permanent increase in mass and size of an organism, and this increase is irreversible. Immediately something grows, it can't go back, so it is irreversible. Okay, that is growth. How about reproduction? What is reproduction? Reproduction is just a process by which living organisms produce their young ones or their offsprings. And there are two forms, or there are two types of reproduction. We have got what we call sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. So in biology, we'll be looking at each one of these characteristics of living things one by one as a topic. Now, sexual reproduction is where you produce offsprings or young ones when a male and a female comes together. Fertilization happens. Okay, that is sexual reproduction. So it involves the fusion of male and female gametes, like the sperm and the egg will fuse to form the child. And here the children are going to be different. Take note of this, is very important. Sexual reproduction, the children are different from the parents. Now, asexual, even from the word asexual means that without sex. So in asexual reproduction, the offsprings are going to be produced from only one parent. It doesn't involve two parents. and there are no gametes involved, meaning that we don't involve the sperms and the egg. So the children should be produced to be the same as the parent, because if this was a parent, the parent will simply divide on the middle, and then you are going to have two other cells. So that is asexual reproduction. The other characteristic of living organisms is excretion. Now, excretion is just the removal of metabolic waste products. In our body, there are a lot of things that happen. Different reactions happen in our body. Remember, we are forming carbon dioxide, we are forming water, we are forming energy, we are forming urea. All these things that we are forming, if we allow them to be in the body, they can be harmful. So you need to excrete, you need to remove them. That process of removing these harmful substances is what we call excretion. Okay? Excretion. So what are some harmful things that we can remove from the body in excretion? Urea, excess salt. So for example, during sweating, you remove salt which is too much. And also excess water, like in sweating. Biopigments. That's why if, okay, like biopigments, yeah, they are also removed from the body. Carbon dioxide, you can see, is also another waste product that's supposed to be removed from the body. And then we have got also irritability. Irritability is also known as sensitivity. Good. Now, sensitivity or irritability is the ability to detect change and respond to stimuli. Please take note of that. Being able to respond to stimuli. Now, what is a stimuli? A stimuli is anything that will cause a change or that will cause a response. For example, if you step on fire, what will happen is that you remove your hand or your leg very quickly because fire is a stimuli. Sensitivity is being able to respond, because some people, if they step on fire, they will not feel anything, so meaning they are not sensitive. Okay, like that. So please take note what a stimuli is. They can ask you to define. A stimuli is any change in the environment that will cause a response. Any change in the environment that will cause a response. If you put a nail down, I step there, I'll remove my leg very quickly because that change in the environment causes a response. Is this okay? Okay. And then the other characteristic is nutrition. Okay. Feeding or nutrition. Now, when you're talking about feeding, feeding is just a process by which living organisms get food, obtain food. And there are two types of nutrition. You have got what is known as, let me write on top, let me write down here, two types of nutrition. There is what is known as autotrophic and also heterotrophic. Now, autotrophic nutrition is where an organism will make its own food. For example, green plants make their own food because they can get energy directly from the sun. Now, heterotrophic nutrition is where animals don't make their own food. So they have to get the food from other sources. For example, from other animals. Okay, so that is heterotrophic. So heterotrophs include animals. Autotrophs are plants which can make their own food. That's okay? Okay, good. Please make sure that you know the 7 characteristics of living organisms. Now, let's talk about what a cell is. What is a cell?
A cell,
Hmm.
cell is a cell is a fundamental basic unit of a living thing.
Okay, good. The fundamental basic unit of a living organism. It's actually the functional unit of any living organism. Without a cell, you can't have a human being. So it's a functional unit. That's why we call it fundamental. It's very important. Okay. Now, we have got different organisms. You have got some organisms which have got only one cell. And those organisms with one cell, we call them unicellular. Uni means one. An example, you only have one example that you mention on unicellular organisms if they brought in the exam. It includes things like amoeba. Okay, so if they ask you to mention a unicellular organism, amoeba. You have got other organisms which have got a lot of cells, many cells, and such organisms are known as multicellular. An example that you can give is a plant, an animal like a human being. All these have got a lot of different cells. Okay, and apart from amoeba, you also have bacteria here. Yes,
Explain for me again on the single cell. At it comes from
a single cell only has got uh, organisms which have got only one cell, but they function. Include the thing, those we call them unicellular because they only have one cell. Like a bacteria is just one cell, but it will be able to work. On the other hand, a human being has got many cells which work together. So a human being is a multicellular organism. Okay, that is okay.
yes.
So take note of the example of a unicellular organism, some multicellular organisms. Now, what happens that in our bodies there are chemical reactions that happen. For me to be able to make energy and for me to be able to use the energy in the body, reactions have to happen in the body. And those reactions which happen in the body, we call them metabolic reactions. We are calling them metabolic reactions because they involve metabolize molecules which are necessary for me to be able to gain the energy that I need. And so, of these metabolic reactions that we have in our bodies, which happen in our bodies, we have got what we call anabolism, and we also have catabolism. You need to know the difference between these. Anabolism are reactions where you are having large molecules being made. So basically, this is making of large molecules from simple ones. Okay, for example, we can talk about photosynthesis. If you look at the process of photosynthesis, we are going to make glucose. So in photosynthesis, what you do is you are going to have carbon dioxide and water and energy, and these are going to give you glucose and oxygen. You can see we have made a very big molecule glucose from small molecules. That is anabolism. Catabolism, on the other hand, has to do with the breaking of compounds into smaller ones. Okay, that is the breaking of compounds into smaller ones. An example that we can talk about will include things like respiration. Respiration is just the opposite of photosynthesis. You just change this equation that you can see. For respiration, we already talked about it. You start with glucose, reacted with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Take note of this because they can ask you to write the equation for respiration or for photosynthesis. Another reaction that is catabolic, which involves the breaking down of compounds, will include digestion. When you eat your big food, the food has to be broken down into smaller ones, which you can get to use in the body. That is catabolism because you are breaking down. So, reactions that involve both the anabolism and the catabolism, those reactions we call them metabolism. So what is metabolism? Metabolism is basically the combination of anabolism and catabolism. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
So you can define, when they say define metabolism, you can just say this is a combination of anabolism and catabolism reaction.
Okay, so the best you can say
Or you
is just try to mention what anabolism is and catabolism. So you can say
anabolism is the making of, it's the making of what? It's the
anabolism.
making of,
Mm-hmm.
this is the making of, this is the process of making, is it food?
So anabolism is a process of making big molecules from small ones.
Yes, into larger molecules.
Yes.
Then catabolism is the breaking down of large molecules into smaller ones.
Uh-huh. So metabolism is the process by which large molecules are broken down into smaller ones and smaller molecules are broken down into larger molecules, which is basically a combination of anabolism and catabolism. So you can say that, okay? Okay. Now, when you are talking about these cells, you cannot see cells with your eyes. What you do is you use an instrument. What is the instrument that is used to see cells?
I don't know.
So we're going to use a microscope. A microscope is an instrument that is used to enlarge, to make objects become big. Okay, that is to enlarge, isn't it? So you need to be able to label a microscope if they give you. So a microscope is going to have some general parts. Let's see if I can draw it well. Okay, let me simplify it like this. So the parts of a microscope which are important, the first one you are going to have on top here, there is where you place your eyes. So we call that as the eyepiece. The eyepiece contains a magnifying glass, a glass that will make things to appear big. And then these three things that you can see here, we call them objective lenses. Objective lenses also have got lenses to be able to make the things that you are viewing to become bigger. Now these objective lenses are held by another structure here, which we call a revolving nosepiece. Others will just say a nosepiece there. And then in this place is where you're going to be able to put the object that you are trying to view. So this is known as the stage. Now on the stage you need light. So what you are going to have is you are going to have down here a mirror, and the aim of the mirror is to reflect light so that it goes to the stage and then you'll be able to view your objects. So I've got a mirror here. Apart from that, we also have this part which we use to placing for actually placing this microscope, and this is known as the base. We also have two important parts. So we have got what we call the fine adjustment knob, this adjustment knob, and also what we call the coarse adjustment knob. Okay, you need to know at least the function of these parts which I've stated here. These are the many parts of the microscope. Okay, so starting with we already talked about what the eyepiece does. It has got glasses to magnify object, and then the revolving nosepiece object holds the objective lenses. The objective lenses, these ones are at different magnifications, so you can actually see if there is one at times 40, another one should be at times 100, another one maybe at something higher like it, or even lower like a times 80. So that times 80 is just meaning that is the power of magnification, that is how far it can magnify. So when you are at low power, there's going to be little magnification, and when you are at a higher power, there's going to be a higher magnification. Now you can actually calculate magnification. Now before I talk about that, this coarse adjustment knob, what it will be doing is that it will be it can move the stage so that you can view your object. It can take the stage either up or down, and the aim of that is you want to bring the object into focus. The fine adjustment knob, when you are changing it, you are trying to tune so that you can see your object clearly. Okay, clearly. So it is there to bring the object into clear focus so that you can easily see. If it was looking blurred, so that you can be able to clearly see. Is that okay? Okay. So because the microscope magnifies things, if you started with something which was very small, let's say you started with a leaf, and this leaf you measured its length, and it was, let's say, 2 centimeters. When you look on the microscope, it looks very big, and let's say after viewing under a microscope, it looks like it is 6 centimeters. So you can calculate magnification, and magnification is given as a size of the image divided by the size of the object. The image is that thing that you always see on the microscope, and here we are seeing 6 centimeters. The object is that thing that you actually had at the beginning. So this is 2 centimeters. You can see the centimeters will cancel out. So 2 into 6, that is going to give us a 3. Put a times. You can either put it in front or behind. So meaning that the object has been magnified, or it has been made to appear bigger 3 times. Okay. Is that okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Now let's just talk about the cells and then we'll be able to conclude. So when you're talking about cells, you have got cells which are found in a plant and a cell which is found in an animal. So these have got some features which are similar and some other features which are different. I'm going to write an animal cell here and a plant cell this side. And this one you need to know because they can actually bring okay. So what you can see here are two cells. For an animal cell, the outermost part that you can see here is known as a cell, also known as plasma membrane, the cell membrane. An animal cell doesn't have a cell wall. The outermost part of a plant cell is a cell wall. If you get to go inside, this is where you are going to now find the cell membrane for an animal cell. It's much inside. And then you have got this space, it's known as the cytoplasm. And that will be same with this space that you can see here, that's the cytoplasm. And then you also have, in an animal cell, you have got the nucleus, and the nucleus is on the center. In a plant cell, the nucleus is not on the center. You can see it is on the side. The question is, why is the nucleus not on the center for plants? That is because you have got the vacuole. The vacuole is what takes up the middle of a plant cell. Plant cells are also going to have another organ which is called the chloroplast. Chloroplast, these make up chlorophyll, which is the liquid part. Okay, which is the liquid part of the plant. So they can ask you in the exam, mention some similarities between an animal cell and a plant cell. So the similarities are that they both contain the nucleus, 1. They contain, both of them, the cytoplasm, 2. They both contain the cell membrane, 3. Okay. And then on the differences, if you look, A plant cell has got a cell wall. An animal cell does not have a cell wall. And this cell wall for a plant, please take note, they can ask you, it is made up of cellulose. Cellulose is a carbohydrate. Another thing is that a plant cell has got a big vacuole, while an animal cell does not have a vacuole. Another thing is that a plant cell has got chloroplasts. An animal cell doesn't have any chloroplasts. Another thing, look at the shape. A plant cell has got a fixed shape. An animal cell does not have a fixed shape. Does not have a fixed shape. So these are some of the differences. And also a plant cell is bigger than an animal cell. So these are differences you need to make sure that you take note of. Alright? So there are some other parts which we can find in a cell. Things like the rough endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes. You are going to find things like the Golgi bodies. So if you look at a cell with a higher magnification, those are some things that you'll be able to see. You are going to be able to see other organelles. So endoplasmic reticulum, you see something like this. So if you see in a cell, there's something like this. This is known as a endoplasmic reticulum. Now, if this endoplasmic reticulum doesn't have any ribosomes, then it is known as a smooth endoplasmic reticulum. But on this endoplasmic reticulum, if you see things like dots, those are actually ribosomes. If you see those ribosomes on this one, this is going to be known as rough endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, so that is the endoplasmic reticulum. You also have something which is known as a Golgi body. So the function of the rough endoplasmic reticulum is basically to make proteins, because ribosomes, which you can see here, are involved in the making of proteins. On the other hand, the smooth endoplasmic reticulum is involved in what we call detoxification and also making lipids. What is detoxification? Is just a removing of toxic things. Say for example, someone drank alcohol. So for those toxic alcohol not to harm a person, the smooth endoplasmic reticulum will be able to do that function. Rough endoplasmic reticulum has got ribosomes, and so it is involved in making proteins, because ribosomes are involved in making proteins. You also, yes, excretion is the removal of waste products of metabolism. Detoxification is making something not toxic to the body. Okay. And then there are other organelles that you are going to see. They look like this. So it is packages like this. If you see organelles like these ones we call them the Golgi apparatus, or also known as Golgi bodies. Now, Golgi bodies are involved in the processing of proteins. So these proteins which have been made by the rough endoplasmic reticulum, for them to start functioning, they have to be processed. So what will process them is the Golgi apparatus. That is its function, right? Golgi apparatus to process the proteins. We are also going to see some organelles which will look like this. They look a bit like a cylinder. You see something like that. These ones we call them as the mitochondria. Now the mitochondria is an organelle where energy is made. It's known as the powerhouse because it is what makes up energy. Okay, it makes up energy of the cell. So without the mitochondria, you will not be able to have energy. Remember respiration, we gave the equation. In respiration, energy was being produced. So actually, respiration will happen in the mitochondria. Okay? And then, just something for you to take note of, we talked about the cytoplasm. Now, both plant cells and animal cells have got a nucleus. What other part is common for animal cells and plant cells? Do you remember what we mentioned? What part is common for both animal cells and plant cells? I've already written it. Hmm. What else?
The parts which are both in animals,
So we also have a cytoplasm
the cell membrane.
and the cell membrane. So these three parts make up what we call the living part of the cell. And the living part of the cell is known as a protoplasm. Just take note of that because they can ask you this. Okay. The vacuole that we talked about, the vacuole, that space that you saw in a plant cell, contains a fluid inside, and that is known as cell sap. Now, cell sap is a solution which contains like sugar, salt, and water. And the vacuole is surrounded by a membrane, this membrane that you can see here. This membrane is known as a tonoplast. Let me write it well. Tonoplast. Okay, that is it. So that is a vacuole. So the concentration of the cell sap, which is a solution inside the vacuole, is going to have a big role in the movement of water in and out of the cell. So it will allow water to move in and out of the cell. So this is it. This is what you need to understand on cells for now. In the next class, we'll talk about some specialized cells.